Lloyd's joining me to talk about something absolutely amazing. It came onto my radar when I was looking at some other projects, and this is Main Street. It looks at POS, not proof of stake, but point of sales systems.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, you like that one, didn't you? So, I'd really like this one because it's kind of like the last hurdle in using crypto. We've got it on exchanges, we're buying, but how do I spend it? How do I use it? And Main Street looks like an absolutely awesome solution for that. Lloyd, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Peter, thank you so much. And that's a great intro because, yeah, we feel like this is like last mile of crypto, right? We're getting there with one of these tools that is needed for that real world adoption piece. Like you said, Main Street's real focus, it's a peer-to-peer payment system and a point of sale that's crypto aware so that a mom and pop who's running a small business, someone who's running a service business like a plumbing shop or an electrician or whatever, they now can open up to receive a number. We don't have the exact number yet, but it will be lots of different cryptos that you can use as a payment. And what's important about it is that me as the payer, I can select whatever I want to spend and send whatever I want to send. And then on the receiving side, the payee, the small business or the service business, they say, I only want to receive dollars or euros or whatever currency, or maybe they want to DCA into a particular crypto or two themselves. So they say, I want 80% dollars, 10% Bitcoin, and 10% Cardano ADA, right? And so that's the magic of what Main Street is working to accomplish, is taking it and just eliminating the friction. Right now, today, if you want to accept crypto, you can, but you have to have a wallet for Bitcoin, and you have to have a wallet for Ethereum, a wallet for Cardano, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And oh wow, no, I want to pay with this other thing that you've never heard of. Well, now I'd have to get a wallet for that quickly, right? We're eliminating that. With that, there's a lot of challenge in trying to keep that flowing for a small business owner, and then you think about the overhead of the accounting and all that, and
oh yeah,
the other side, of course, what happens if that crypto drops in value today and that you didn't really want and you were going to sell it tomorrow, but gosh, you had to take the kids and the dog to to something, and you forgot to sell it, and now you lost 20 or 30 bucks.
Yeah. Well, you got a business to run. Like if this was a coffee shop, where in the day do you have time to
trade
stop
crypto
and convert? Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
So here in Australia, we do see a lot of coffee shops and whatnot. They have the QR codes for scanning your wallet, and you can do the transfers that way. So it's still quite a manual process in how that all works. Like you said, described it with wallets. You set up those different wallets, and that's how you do it.
So we know the interest is there, right? Like people are already doing it with that trouble and with that friction. They're still doing it. So let's just eliminate the friction. Let's make it easier for them.
Precisely. And the other option that people have at the moment also is those crypto cards. So crypto.com has one. There's a Binance card. I haven't seen that one before, but that flips the onus back on the actual user of the card as opposed to the shop owner itself.
That's right. I have to go in and select what crypto I want to sell real time in order to make the purchase. So I have to, and it's, it puts a lot of onus on me as the end user to decide, hey, do I really want to spend ADA right now? It might go up a little bit in the next few days. Maybe instead I switch it over to this other current. Like, do I, again, if I'm buying a coffee, do I really want to have to think about that right now? Probably not. I can set my currency that I want to spend and then go in and just pay for my coffee, and I'm done. And again, it can include dollars or euro or whatever, because we're going to have payment rails that work with fiat just as well as payment rails that work with crypto. So maybe you don't want to spend your crypto this week and you want to spend money from your paycheck instead. You have that option with Main Street as well. That way, again, both sides all the time have the option to figure out what they want to spend and why and how, and what they want to receive and how.
So how does this work then? I'm trying to understand the mechanics behind this and what magic you guys are building behind the point of sale system to make it all work. First off, from a user, so do I need like a special app or something, or a special wallet to spend my crypto? And then you got the point of sale system, and then it's converting. So there's a lot of steps in here. So it sounds like you got a lot to build. How does this process work?
So we've built a lot of it already. Thank you,
Right.
Cardano.
Okay.
Thank you, Cardano Catalyst Fund 9, right?
Wow. Okay.
We actually built a lot of this already, which is great. We're actually, our biggest hurdle now is actually regulatory. We'll get to that in a minute. But talking about the build side of things, what we did is there is a large entity that's out there that if you use Coinbase, if you use Kraken, if you use any of those big exchanges, they all use the same thing. It's called Fireblocks.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Fireblocks is a payment rail system that connects you to basically all of the cryptos. Everyone there's something like 2,200, I think, is the number at this point. So
yeah, quite a few.
It's a large number, right? So there's work to do beyond this, but basically they provide the infrastructure. They do have connections to Cardano, but they don't. They were like, well, yeah, if you want to use Cardano stuff other than ADA, you're going to have to use our raw signing tool. And a couple other guys in the space are like, oh, it's so much work to try to use this raw signing tool. We have Andrew Westberg on our team. He's like, we get to use raw signing tool, and he jumped right on it, and like right. In no time, he's like, okay, yeah, we could trade drip, we could do, so. Yeah. Okay. Like working with these guys is just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? They're brilliant, and it is what it is. And so here we are, and now we've got this tool that is completely aware with Cardano native assets, as well as, of course, access to Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all the other. You name the big guy, it's out there. We can connect to them all. Now there's work to do on the back end still. In that work, it looks like it's kind of like liquidity pools in its own way, in that we are going to have to maintain enough of each currency in our omnibus accounts so that when people are doing their trades, we have enough to cover their trades, and we'll have a slight overage. But that's the work of quant geeks that is way beyond my pay grade. I do not math at that level. I math at statistics level. I'm okay there, but I don't go into the quantum physics realm of financial wizardry that some of these guys go into. That's not me. But
neither do I.
They do that work, and they ensure that we have enough liquidity between the different trading pairs that are typically going to happen. And there will be extenuating circumstances, and we'll have delays when we have to, and those kinds of things. It's all the natural force and order of that. But to the best of our ability, we're going to keep a good even flow so that when you bring in and you want this currency, we make sure we have enough of that currency to cover the daily needs of everybody, so that there's good flows. Now, where Main Street differs from traditional banking is that we're never going to take that money and do hinky stuff with it. Keep it a G audience here. We're not going to do any of the hinky stuff with it. We're just it will sit in the omnibus account until you pull it out. We'll make sure that you're one-to-one matched with your funds. Right?
Okay.
So
appealing. Very appealing. You're not taking it off and lending it out and watching the value of it go down. So it's just
we make our money on protocol fees.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. And we've built the business around the fact that the business will survive and thrive on its protocol fees. So the more that people transact, the more money we make, because we do make money in the swaps.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. Now, you mentioned regulations earlier.
Yeah.
So to be able to use the platform, you have to comply with regulations. The United States is an absolute nightmare. You have to be regulated and compliant in every single state.
That's right.
Not just the country.
And 4 other territories. Yeah. 54 total states and territories. So yeah, the U.S. is a landmine of regulations, right? And it's not the only place, because we're trying to build a global product. So part of the time while I was in Dubai, I was meeting with the folks at the Dubai International Finance Center, the DIFC. And then I also spent some time speaking to the regulators at VARA, which is their new cryptocurrency blockchain token type regulatory agency. What I will say in deference to Dubai at this point is that they have the most progressive feeling regulations, in that they understand that things are moving and changing, and they're learning and growing and changing with it rather than fighting against it. So that has been incredible, total night and day difference from the US, where it's like, and I say this about the US, like the US will let you screw up and then they'll just come after you and bury you under the jail. No problem, right?
Okay.
That's just how the regulatory framework works here. It's all punitive. It's like, oh, you screwed up. Here's $1 million fine. Like, how did I screw up? I didn't even know that I could screw up that way, right? So we've had to hire, we got an army of lawyers working on this stuff in the U.S., trying to get everything right so that when we start in the U.S., we've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and nobody gets in trouble. Nobody goes to jail or spends millions of dollars in fines, right? So that's the goal in the U.S. So that's a slower process. Whereas in Dubai, they're like, hey, let's sit down. Let's look at your use case. Let's go ahead and figure out, you would fall under this regulatory regime over here and maybe this one over here. Here's the rules. Here's the rule book. Check this out. Here's the rule book. It's a little bit of a thick binder, but this is literally the VARA rules for what you have to comply with. But it's finite.
It's there. You can go through it and go, okay, we comply under all these rules. Great.
Exactly. I can check boxes. I can say we got it, and there you go. So that's the idea. Versus in the U.S. right now, it's you contact the lawyers. They turn 3 times around to face east then north. They put eye of newt in a pot and stir, and then then they tell us to drink this potion, and I really hope it doesn't turn me green. But that's like, it's just wizardry. We have no idea what's going on. We have no way of really understanding it yet, and it seems like the expectations are changing every few weeks in the U.S. So we're just kind of trying our best,
Okay. That's a funny way to describe it, but I guess you just got to knock on the doors and wait for them to answer and get through them one at a time.
That's it.
Good luck with that. I'd love to be kept up to date with how you're going in the rollout there in the United States. But I'm sure, like you said, Dubai seems a lot easier. The European market, Asian markets might be far, far easier to roll out this product first.
That's right. And so that's what we're doing. We're going in those directions and helping get the product out where the product's going to be accepted, and never stopping in the U.S. Not at all. That obviously it's a focus, and obviously we're going to get that market going. But we're expanding our reach to other markets where it's just more friendly.
Okay. Now, there's some other questions I have around this in terms of the use case and stuff. Now, here in Australia, anytime I spend crypto, I get charged capital gains tax. So there's a tax liability each and every time I use crypto. Might be good, might be bad. Now, how do you handle that? Because if I'm spending crypto left, right, and center, I need to be able to report that so I can not go to jail. How is tax being handled through the platform?
Exactly that. We store each and every transaction, the price it's sold at, and so you actually have a full accounting for your taxes that are yours to send to an accountant. You'd be able to download it as a spreadsheet, whatever format that works for you. We've already built parts of the reporting system as part of the Catalyst closeout. So we already do track every transaction you make, what currency you used, and what the exchange rate was in your local currency, because we do store your local currency at the time of the transaction. So it's just there for you.
Okay, well, that sounds really good too. Now, back to the other thing around liquidity on the platform, so you can actually provide the trades and whatnot. How are you guys going to gain the liquidity for this? Are there incentives as well for someone like myself providing liquidity? Would it work like a DEX? I'm trying to imagine how that is all set up.
Right. So it can't work. It cannot work like a DEX actually, because it's regulated. Right. So these are internal, it's not even really a liquidity pool. It is really literally are there enough of the assets in trading pairs in order to do the normal day-to-day activity? That's what it is. So there are liquidity pools that you have access to from Fireblocks on the normal exchange. So that's how we add volume that we need to add. So when we have to, we buy and sell chunks of assets that are over let's say underutilized, actually oversubscribed, underutilized. So we only need 2 million Ethereum right now, 2 million ETH, but we have 2.3 million. So we could sell a chunk of that 2.3 that's beyond what our holdings are and buy, say we're short on Bitcoin and we buy extra Bitcoin. And that is what the financial wizards do in the background for us, to keep us afloat of where we need to be to keep the one-to-one matching, because it will happen. But those liquidity pools, they already exist. They're a part of what Fireblocks offers. There are liquidity providers. There are OTC bulletin board type providers that will sell you the cryptos just fine. So that is exactly where that happens. It's just already part of Fireblocks.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes total sense. I thought you guys would have to bootstrap liquidity for the platform as well.
Nope. Thankfully,
okay. No. Well, what about other tokens that you might want to accept? Other Cardano native tokens that don't exist on there?
Exactly, and that's where we are able to trade them on the Cardano network because of the work that Andrew did, right? So that will be possible for us to do that. Now, what's going to happen is not every token on Cardano, just because it's a token on Cardano, is going to qualify to be used on Main Street for payment. There will be some, and there will be requirements that a certain amount of that token be available, and that it hold a certain value before it'll even be allowed in the listing. But that's where tokens like Drip have the opportunity to be, they're a known quantity that we're able to work with. And, I can't really, I can list the good ones, but the reality is that can change. Yep. Right. Yep. And so for right now, we can't even, and we're at least a year out of building this. So we can't really speculate on which ones a year from now will be the ones that are, those are good and safe because they meet our criteria. Right.
Yeah, gotcha. No, totally makes sense. I think Hosky would be very angry if there's suddenly utility and you could use Hosky to buy coffee. So.
I want Hosky to be there so we can buy coffee with Hosky so bad. Just so we can say, no, take away. We can't have the utility.
Yeah, I want to see that happen too. I just see the little Hosky toy behind you on the shelf there too. So I thought I'd just mention it.
All right. He's up there. Got the Sancho Net hat. All the swag from all the recent conferences that we've been going to.
Missed out this year. Very disappointed. Okay. Now you mentioned you're about a year out for seeing this. Is that the timeline, the roadmap that you guys are at the moment? So what do you got to fill in over the next year?
Right. So in the next year, we have a mature and developed interface that's gone through a lot of testing with our starting communities. We may be able to have a U.S. based community because there's some possibility that we'll have some licensing for some parts of the U.S. earlier than others. And in those cases, we could pick a U.S. community within that licensed area and start there. Obviously, Dubai is another one where we're looking at very seriously at starting earlier and getting lots of user feedback, right? So that's the point, is that a year from now, we have a well-developed system that's had a lot of exposure to a lot of users, and we're able to complete a good chunk, hopefully, of the U.S. regulatory, knock wood, and of course, Dubai could be done in that time frame, as well as possibly either Europe or UK, maybe, those kinds of, again, these are all maybes, these are all speculative at a year out, but definitely by the end of year 2, we have lots of really solid regulatory frameworks in place because it's 18 months to 2 years for the US. It's probably about 18 months for Europe or so. It's about UK could be a little less, a little more. Dubai is definitely a little less. Like they're saying 10 to 11 months, right?
Wow. Okay.
So again, it's all there's stuff we can do before we get the regulatory licensing that's testing. And then once we got even even the first license, we can actually roll out and do live market work and see how it's working in a live market. That's where we intend to be at that 1 year mark. And then at the 2 year mark, much more broadly accepted.
All right. Now back to the sellers side of thing, the shop owners and whatnot. Here in Australia, the what's it called? Square has a huge market penetration for the point of sale systems. It's such an easy platform. Market sellers can use it. Coffee shops, big businesses, they all have it in their setups. Now, for your hardware, are you building hardware? You're going to be competing against these kind of guys.
Yeah, we're
You're
hardware
hardware
agnostic.
agnostic.
We don't need to build hardware at all.
Ooh.
I can't say that we'd be able to work on Square's hardware in that respect, but I would say that that what a lot of the hardware that we can use is the hardware that does the QR display, all of the hardware that does the QR display, we can easily work with. All the hardware tablets we'll be able to easily work with. So, unless it's some kind of locked piece of equipment that is only meant for one provider or another, we will be able to work with any generic Android or Apple tablet, cell phone, etc. Like zero problems. That's just how it's built. What we've done as far as hardware is that we're looking at where there are inroads where we can integrate the payment portion and let the user keep the existing hardware. That's another whole track of development that we have, but we're working that track of development as well. And there are some large providers of equipment that they're actually open to integrate with any payment provider, and those are the ones we're going after first. So the guy that has the Square thing, which is trying to lock you into Square, you might struggle, with your Square hardware itself, but the tablet that works for Square will be fine because they're generally just standard tablets. And again, if you have that standard QR display that changes, I've seen them a lot in Asia, where it's just basically a little screen that's a secondary screen that displays the QR code. That in the tablet is all we actually need, and then all of your other normal integrations like cash registers and those kinds of things, they'll just flow and function.
That sounds good. Because the last thing the business wants to do is have to buy a brand new piece of hardware just to set the crypto assets and then integrate a brand new accounting and point of sale system, integrate it with their current one, and that just sounds like a nightmare.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense, right? So our goal is to integrate with as many of the existing systems as possible, and that's why I said we're QR driven for a reason, because now they can have that simple small QR secondary display, and they can have the M Street app, and it's 2 buttons and they're done.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many of those QR devices here in Australia. I think some of our point of sale hardware devices are a little bit older, and it's still made primarily for tap NFC chip cards. So maybe something I just haven't taken notice of.
Well, that's the other thing. There's no reason we couldn't work with NFC. If it works with QR, it can work with NFC. We are perfectly capable of doing either. So that is another option, is the NFC. So yeah,
okay.
none of that really, like those two technologies, what they do effectively the same thing. One uses a camera, one uses a radio, but they do this. They put the same information out. So yeah, again, being hardware agnostic and building this way, that's what makes this make sense.
Really good approach. All right. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the WeFunder stuff that you guys got on at the moment. So
Sure.
I found out about Main Street a little bit back earlier this year, but I just didn't have the capacity. But then I saw it again when looking at Mahen's WeFunder page, and they mentioned that Main Street has one. So I did some deep diving, and hey presto, okay, here we are. So what is this all about, and what are you guys trying to do here?
Okay, so this is really kind of, to me, this is one of the cooler aspects of this. Kind of tying in the regulation and everything into this. In order for us to be regulated in the U.S., we needed to avoid any connection to the idea of trading a crypto token or any of that kind of stuff for the value of the company itself. The company itself could not be in that space. We can buy, sell, and trade it all day long, but we couldn't participate in that way. Our lawyers were just telling us it's just not tenable right now. But we still wanted to give the Cardano community the opportunity. They've supported us up to this point. We wanted to give them the opportunity in order to have ownership in what we do. We can't sell a token. What can we do? And it's a Reg CF crowdfund fundraise, which allows non-accredited investors. The minimums are very low, and you can own a piece of Main Street, a real piece. You'll be a shareholder in Main Street by going to the Reg CF crowdfund at WeFunder. They set up a special purpose vehicle, is what they call it. And that so for all of that, you guys have to go to the WeFunder site. Like I can't even talk about the numbers or anything.
I read the rules.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Right.
Yep.
So that's just the bottom line, is that go there and look if you want to understand. But the bottom line is, yes, you own equity in the company. It's your real equity in your real name to own a piece of Main Street. And that's what we're doing. And we did it because we want the Cardano community to have this opportunity. We are going through a more traditional fundraise as well. I'm meeting tomorrow with some people. I've got people that are out in California that I'm meeting with later in the next week that are, that are the accredited investors trying to take their piece and negotiate and all that stuff. But the Reg CF is designed for our community. It was meant to give the Cardano community the opportunity to come on board, have a piece of Main Street that's really theirs, and work with it.
And we certainly do have a good community, and to be able to give the community an option to get involved in behind a project like this, other than just a speculative token, I think is a really nice add-on. So I'll put the links to the WeFunder page in the show notes. You have to go there to see all the information. We can't talk about it outside of that. It's I think it's because you need to give everyone equal opportunity to find that information. So it has to go through one single point.
Exactly. There's two links, and you'll get both the links. One is the Reg CF link to WeFunder and then there's a disclaimer link as well. So you'll need to place both links, and so those will be, thank you, Pete, for putting those in your links and your show notes there, and and that's how folks can understand and learn what it really means to be an owner of the company in that respect.
Cool. Very, very cool. All right, Lloyd, is there anything else that we need to know before we sign off?
I think we got, as usual, Pete, you do a great job of walking us through all the areas we need to talk about. So I appreciate your time and hosting this for us, giving us the opportunity to come on and share with your audience what we're working on. I really appreciate that.
All right. And make sure you follow Main Street on Twitter and all the socials too, so you can be kept up to date with everything that's happening. All right. Awesome,
Thanks,
Lloyd. Thank you for joining me on this episode and talking through Main Street.
Take care. Thanks.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating.